The car market is finally coming down. Prices are coming down, so is it a great time to buy a vehicle, new or used, on the car market right now? Well, we're going to be talking about some data, some statistics, and of course, I do want to answer this question. Should you be buying a vehicle or looking to buy a vehicle right now? Well, a lot of people have commented on this, and I'm going to put my insider, I'm in the automobile market right now, buying vehicles and working in the automobile industry. So I've got a foot more than just in the door. I'm really in the industry, and I want to help you out. So I'm Johnny from Johnny's Car Care and Reviews, here to talk to you about the automobile market as it stands today. So I do like to use statistics, and I do like, of course, to watch a lot of YouTube and see where other people are getting their information from. So Cox Automotive, which is actually a system we currently use at our automobile dealership. And I actually find it quite interesting because they also come out with news. They're not just very useful for tools. So we've got various tools in the business, and I can tell you that one thing we've seen over the last 4 months is that the paid prices at auction for used vehicles has significantly come down. So back in mid-July, thereabouts, prices actually dropped about 10 to 15%. And then throughout the summer and early fall, prices in total, paid prices at auction, dropped overall about somewhere between 15 to 20%. And just recently, from October to November, we can call what we call wholesale sale prices definitely did drop. Just recently, in the last 40 days, wholesale prices have dropped by almost 10% or thereabouts. So that is locally. Now, if we look at Cox on Automotive, they're saying that 2.44 million unsold used vehicles exist in the United States as of October 31st, 2022, that there's a 51 days supply of used vehicles, meaning if no new used vehicles got added onto lots, it would take 51 days to sell what's currently on those lots, and that the average listing price is $27,564 with an average mileage of 70,000 miles. Now, the big highlights from this is that the average used vehicle asking price slipped below $28,000, and that's the lowest since it's been since April. Now, prices in April on used vehicles were inflated. This goes back to 2021, where, after the pandemic, or after the first, what we could say being forced to stay at home, people got out of their boroughs, out of their homes, and bought a lot of vehicles. So new vehicles, what happened? New lots, they became essentially very, very void. And today, when you see a lot that has vehicles on it, most of them are actually customer orders awaiting delivery. Now, the fact that prices are the lowest since April is a big deal because yes, in April, they were still elevated because of scarcity. Vehicles depreciate with time. So going back, 8-9 months, normally you'd have a good amount of depreciation on vehicles, and, asking prices on used vehicles are finally coming down because, of course, when dealerships are paying higher prices on the vehicles that they bought 2, 3, 4, and in some cases, if they're unfortunate, 6, 7 months ago, because of course their goal is to unload vehicles as quickly as possible. They want to take them on, hopefully fix them up. If you're doing business with a good dealership, they won't just take them on trade and then put them out for sale. They're gonna fix them up, and you should ask what repairs went into the vehicle. Ask, what repairs went into the vehicle, and ask for proof, car accident report. You're gonna definitely want to look at those two things before buying. So that's my buyer's advice. Don't be fooled on that. Make sure you're not just, unless it's a very new, relatively new vehicle, don't buy a vehicle that's just been taken in on trade, washed up, and put back for sale without a mechanical inspection. And then, ask for a mechanical inspection. Find out what has or what will be put in the vehicle to make it just hunky-dory, just right. And of course, ask for the accident report. But essentially, car lots, used and new, have been very low. Now, the used market, the inventory, is actually starting to build up. So really simple, it's a good time to buy a used vehicle because it does take a little while for dealerships to adjust. Their wholesale prices did start dropping last summer, but of course, if they paid higher for a vehicle, they're not just immediately going to be, really gearing up to drop that price by thousands of dollars and lose money on it. So it takes a little bit longer. If the wholesale prices are low, they're buying them for, maybe I would get roughly 25% less than, where they're basically buying them at finally more normal levels. They had been inflated by almost 30%, the asking prices, the prices that they were paying them at. And now that they're starting to actually get inventory, used inventory that they've bought at lower prices, they're starting to also ask lower prices for them. Different story on the new. We'll get to that in just a moment. But Cox Automotive is pointing out that the asking prices are finally dropping, and the asking price gap with 2021 is on track to disappear this month. So, Cox Automotive does go on to mention that, yes, used prices are starting to go down. Now, recently found, well, not that recently, but I do want to point out YAA on YouTube. They've also have their website. Excellent point and excellent data to use if you're buying a vehicle. Find out what the average asking price for the vehicle you're interested in. Find out what that average asking price is and use that as a negotiation point, because now used vehicles, you could say, are a little more negotiable, especially considering if the dealership still has a higher price that reflects maybe what it was worth last summer. So you're going to want to look for that. Now, I was watching the Ben Hardy show recently because, well, I like Ben Hardy. I like his show, but he did mention something that I want to clarify. He was mentioning that you can, go into a dealer and offer maybe $10,000 less than asking, and that, they'll call you back 1, 2, or 3 weeks later. What I'm really going to say for my piece of advice if you're shopping a vehicle is to be really informed based on data. Because if you make an outrageous offer, if you don't have data, you don't know if your offer is outrageous or not. And if you make a really outrageous offer, there are good chances you're not going to get called back because you sort of get put into a bin, mentally, the different dealerships you'll have visited, the different, even if you're making offers to individuals on their vehicles, whether it's a dealer, whether it's an individual, if you say something that seems ridiculous to them, they're probably not going to call you back. They're going to write you off and focus their attention on someone else. So how do you know if your offer is ridiculous? Well, if you're looking at the new market, make sure you build the vehicle online. 10,000 below asking, below MSRP isn't reasonable if there is currently an internet rebate of $10,000. Well, then you're just asking for, the internet price. And you may very well get a call back 1, 2, or 3 weeks later. Heck, if you're offering to buy at the internet price, yes, some dealerships may never call you back, but there will be dealerships that will call you back maybe the very next day or conclude a transaction with you on the spot. So you need to do your research. That is the big takeaway that I want to get across in this video. Do your research, and that's why I really like Ray and Zach or YAA, depending on which of the YouTube channels you're looking at. And YAA, they have their website, and they're gonna, you put in your model, and you'll find out what the average asking price for the used vehicle is. And making an offer based on where the market currently is will show that you're an informed purchaser, an informed consumer to the person you're making an offer to. Much more likely that they will take you seriously. Because let's say you've got, the Ben Hardy show was talking about this, that at one dealership they're asking $10,000 over MSRP, and had this consumer looked around, They could have gotten the vehicle for $10,000 under MSRP. That type of situation only makes sense and is only, could only occur if there's a $10,000 internet rebate, because most models of vehicles, unless you're talking about something that's $200,000-$300,000, but if you're talking about, let's say, a $60,000 pickup, there isn't going to be, or a $50,000 pickup, there isn't going to be a $10,000 profit margin for the dealership. So if you make an offer that takes them thousands and thousands of dollars below cost, that's a situation where you're likely not going to get a callback. And what's going on with new lots? Well, I'll tell you. In new lots, you're going to think that there's inventory right now. And there's a few available vehicles, but most manufacturers, the vehicles that are on their lots are customer orders. So before you get the impression of, oh, well, I can just offer $10,000 less on, pretty much any new vehicle, and I'm going to get to do business with that dealership. Actually, you probably won't get called back, and you won't be concluding a transaction for a new vehicle unless the manufacturer just happens to have a manufacturer's rebate of $10,000. And you're going to find out, this is where you need to, for the new vehicle, let's talk about where to go for your new vehicle data and research, and for the used vehicle data and research. For the new vehicle data and research, build them online. If you're looking, whether it's an F-150, a Ram 1500, a GMC, a Toyota Supra, go online, build the vehicle pretty much the way you like it. And it's okay if you have questions. The dealership will be there for that. Print off what you've built. Go to the dealership, and now you're informed whether there's no internet rebate or a $10,000 internet rebate. You know what you should be paying, and you also know you'll be in a position to not make an outrageous offer, making it that they're just not going to necessarily want to deal with an outrageous offer, and also that you won't be taken advantage of either and pay $10,000 over MSRP when there is a $10,000 manufacturer's rebate. And if you're looking at the used market, well, simply go to YA. Their website is going to tell you the average asking price on a given vehicle, and that's where you're going to want to find out what's the condition of the vehicle. So if the mileage is higher, or if the condition is poor or requires maintenance that hasn't yet to be done, well then yes, you should negotiate below their asking price. If they're, let's say, asking average internet price, but there's money to put into the vehicle, well, make sure you make them a lower offer, or ask them to make the vehicle worth the average asking price. So if there's $2,000-$3,000 of repairs and maintenance to put in the vehicle, but they're asking average price, well, make sure they put the work in, or that you get several $1,000s off. So that's my advice for you all. Be as informed as possible. New vehicle, use the manufacturer's build and price website, and that's why in my videos, I often enough will build various vehicles, whether it's a Bronco, a Maverick. I'm going to start possibly building up vehicles for other brands, because I do want to help out. The goal of this channel is to help out as many people as possible and be as helpful as possible. Now, of course, there's been so much going on at Ford. I've been focusing mostly on Ford. And that brings us to the vehicle behind us. That is a Super Duty, and I do want to mention that I am basing things on what I'm also seeing, not just data, because data that is averages across an entire nation can when you have big averages, sometimes you can miss the smaller details. But I can tell you locally, I have seen trades that, let's say, were worth $84,000 just 35-40 days ago, are now worth, not roughly, precisely $8,000 less. So about a 10% decline on the wholesale, and also asking prices at dealerships that are staying up to date and current with the market, dealerships that want to sell them instead of collect them. well, their asking prices on the new used vehicles have gone down as well. Now, if you're waiting for major rebates on the new, you'll want to like and subscribe not to miss out, because I do try to keep everyone up to date with automotive news, especially focusing on Ford. But I can tell you that we are seeing lots fill up a little more, have a few more vehicles. The used lots are actually getting relatively full, but when it comes to the new vehicles, what you're seeing is mostly customer orders. And yes, more and more customers, there'll be a certain percentage that won't take their vehicle because, well, maybe the credit doesn't go through because they don't pass for financing anymore now that monthly payments are higher due to the higher interest rate at Ford. I talk all about how you can lock in your interest rate from when you ordered it. But there'll also be people looking at what they may feel is an uncertain market in regards to their job security and might not take on that new vehicle. So I do suspect to see roughly about 10 to 15% of the ordered vehicles not be taken by the customers that ordered them. But just this summer, lots were, at Ford at least, lots were pretty much bare bone empty. So if you figure 10 to 15% of people are not taking possession of their vehicles, well, it'd still take many months to fill those lots back up to the levels they were back in 2019. So I don't expect any major rebates on new vehicles unless we're talking about brands that have traditionally given huge rebates. So, of course I'm talking in Canadian dollars, but the Ram 1500, which often saw $12,000 to even up to $17,000 in rebates. Yes, currently they have rebates, and you go on their build and price website, and you can find out exactly what the manufacturer rebate is and make sure that you get that when you go to deal your vehicle. And they've had inventory throughout the last 2 years. But when we're talking about Ford, Toyota, Honda, Kia, Hyundai, we're talking about brands that have seen very low inventory when it comes to hybrids. Just no inventory other than when a customer, a buyer, a consumer does not take possession of the vehicle that they ordered. These aren't vehicles that we're going to see manufacturers rebates on. So if you need a new vehicle, if you're interested in a new vehicle, I recommend you don't wait to see major rebates on new vehicles. And I don't think manufacturers, for example, Ford, I don't foresee Ford in the future going back to the model of major rebates to liquidate vehicles because, well, it negatively impacts the trade value. So if your truck, let's say a Ram 1500, if year round there's on average 12,000 Canadian, or let's say, 8,000 US dollars, if there's generally $8,000 to $10,000 rebate on a Ram 1500, month after month, well, it's going to affect the value of the consumer's trade. So they're going to go in and get a bad value on their trade, and it doesn't necessarily, for many people, it's going to be discouraging and may actually cause them to not buy another Ram 1500 when they find out how much value their vehicle has lost. So there's definitely a benefit to both the manufacturer and the consumer not to have major rebates on vehicles in regards to, resale value. So if you're waiting around for a Ford, Toyota, or Honda, and you're thinking maybe I'll wait a month or two more because the prices are going to come way down on the new, no, and on the used, they already have. So what I'm saying here is it is an excellent time to buy a used vehicle. Interest rates, however, are high, which it surprises me. Certified sales have gone down as well. So a certified vehicle is a used vehicle, and it's certified by the manufacturer, and the manufacturer usually offers an interest rate which is considerably better than the banks. And I'm surprised Cox Automotive pointed out that certified used sales have gone down, and I would have expected them to go dramatically up during these time periods because financing a used vehicle through a bank is quite expensive. You can be paying 8 to 10% these days. So what I would recommend is put down some cash. And that's what I did for our F-150 Raptor. Instead of investing in the stock market towards my one day, way down the road retirement, well, the stock market has been hurting these days and I've been losing money in the stock market, so I put it on the F-150 Raptor to avoid paying more interest. I hope this video has been helpful. It is truly the goal, and if you do want to help us, please hit that like button, subscribe. It helps dress and feed those poodles. And until next time, I do hope you get either more cars and more power, or that you get to put the pedal to the metal in the vehicle you currently own. Take care, and until next time, we'll see you around.